Well, it's the Tuesday workshop in the Thinker Growth community. And today we've got a couple topics that are circling around. We are going to miss Naomi today. She is traveling and will be traveling next week as well. And TC, it sounds like he might be on the way. So the topic, Brian, you had an interesting topic from yesterday. And then that also came up. We were two conversations yesterday that I had, one with you, Ryan, and one with John. The idea of playing checkers, play the move that's in front of you, rather than chess, thinking 10 moves ahead of you and becoming all stressed out and anxious about things that aren't possibly controllable. And then you, Ryan, what was your topic that you were thinking about?
Setting intentions and setting aside your goals.
Setting aside your goals. What do you mean by that?
So the story goes like, I have a bunch of goals, and I was talking to someone that I'm going to be working with on my skincare brand, and I was telling him about my goals, and I was like, yeah, I have, this is my goal, blah, blah, blah. And after I said that, I asked him what he thought, and he said, the first thing I want you to do is to get rid of all your goals. And the first thing I thought was, are they shit? Like, why? I was like, why? And he said, well, the thing about goals, he was like, what I'd rather you do is set intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, the thing about goals is that there are two outcomes with the goal. You either do it or you don't. You either achieve that goal or you don't achieve it. When you're setting intentions, it opens up your mind to different opportunities to reach that particular destination of your intention. So let's say my goal is to make $1,000 this week, right? And I need to make $1,000 to do this thing, right? And so setting that goal there at the end of the week, about come Friday, I either made that money or I didn't,
Mm-hmm.
which can lead to stress, right? Whether something like that. But as an entrepreneur, there are many different ways where you can make money. So my intention was to afford or make enough money to afford something, or make X amount of money, or just to make money in general. Then what ends up happening in your mind is you become open to different opportunities to make that type of outcome, to making
Mm-hmm.
money or turning a profit or something like that. What that did for me was it opened up my mind to different solutions to the problems that I was facing, or to being open to different solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really great because you can live by intention, right? You can live your life with an intention to be someone that treats people well and yada, yada. But if you have a goal towards something, that goal eventually will come to pass, right? Either you achieve that
Mm-hmm.
goal or you don't. And so when that was introduced to me yesterday, I was like, wow, that makes a ton of sense, because like there are, what they say, there are 100 different ways you can skin a cat, I guess, or so many different ways. There are tons of different ways you can solve a problem. Solve problems.
Yes.
And rather than me saying that I want to make $1,000, buy a car, this, that, or the other, or whatever, my intention was I want to create something to become financially free and independent. So all of what that is or how I can achieve that can change, but that big intention of where I'm looking to go, that direction that I'm leading, is still the same direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's it's definitely true that if you need to make $1,000, you could sell one person $1,000 product, or you could sell 10 people $100 product, or you could sell 100 people a $10 product, or you could sell 1,000 people a $1 product, right?
Yep.
You could sell 2,000.
There you go. Ad infinitum, right? And I think, like, if I'm the way I'm looking at my Zoom screen right now, Jason's on my left and Ryan's on my right. It'd be cool if I could reach into their screens and pull them together and say, 'cause I see the concepts sort of overlapping each other here. And I think this will dovetail with what you wanted to talk about, Jason, because I think what happens is, if you play chess at the start when you're early in business and you get too specific and you try to anticipate too many things, and you say, and your goal is very narrowed like that, like Ryan's describing, then yeah, you either get it or you don't. And you have to, but your analogy of playing checkers instead of narrowing what you're going to focus on to achieve a better outcome than what you currently have. I think people narrow the outcome when they should narrow the focus, and they leave the focus wide open when they should leave the outcome wide open. Would you agree?
So my thought is this: intentions are sort of the bedrock that we might build our house of goals upon. And I mean it this way. If your intention, let's talk about relationships. If my intention is to make my partner feel cared about, I want that individual to feel loved and valued. I could do that any number of ways. That is also, so if my intention is to make them feel loved and valued or cared about, I might also need to set a goal that says one of the specific ways she feels loved and cared for is that she wants to go to Macedonia because she's got relatives there and she's not been there in a decade. Now, my intentions might be good, but if I keep taking her to San Francisco to make her feel loved and cared about, eventually my intentions are going to fall flat because she wants to go to Macedonia. The intention is good, the goal is not. And the two combined together can create something that's sustainable. Goals shift due to circumstances. Intentions are more lasting and lifelong. That's why I think Simon Sinek starts with the book Start With Why. Your why you're doing something is very important because it aligns to something further in the distance, something longer lasting, something that you really care about. Why do I care about that? And therefore here's how I want to express that in the world. Specifically how that gets done, goals are important or nothing will be achieved, but they are not to take the place of an intention, because goals without intentions is just busy work. So I think when it comes down to business, like I think Ryan, you and I are talking about with like the skincare brand, if the goal is to make readily available a quality product, easy to apply, that appeals to the forgotten male, there are a lot of ways to do that. But at the end of the day, if the goals are not there, which have to in some ways be a bit binary, if the goals aren't there, then intentions don't mean anything.
Yeah.
So I think they work hand in hand. That's my thought.
Yeah. Because at some point, right, your intention means something. Whether or not you've put pen to paper to define what that is a separate issue, but you have in your head a clear vision of how you would like things to work. In my family right now, we're working through this by clarifying our values. And, just as an example, one of the things that our family values is what we call empowered ownership. But right away, if I say that phrase to you, to each of you, that's going to mean something just a little different than it means for me. And so if we don't list out what does empowered ownership look like in our family culture, if we don't have ideas of what that means, then our sons are going to look at that and say, okay, big whoop. What does that mean? I don't care until I know what it looks like to be an empowered owner of my life. And by doing that, again, we go back to that principle of separation. By doing that, we define clearly what it looks like. We also define what it doesn't look like. And that's where that binary piece comes into play. So that even if you have, as you said, you can have all the great intentions you want. Then at some point, those goals need to crystallize, reconciled to those intentions, or else you're going to be all over the map and you're going to get lost and confused and give up. And you'll be back at square one, wondering why things are not panning out the way you hoped they would.
Yeah. Well, it harkens back to something Warren Buffett talked about. One of his great litmus tests for when to buy a company was if the president or owner of that company believes in the business versus is there for the money.
Mm-hmm.
Money's like the goal, right?
Yep.
If the money's no longer there, that person's likely to leave the business. But if they believe in the business, the intentions, then they will stick through the lean and good times. And that I think is an important distinction for entrepreneurs. If people get into business because they want freedom, they want money, they want all these binary goals. I want to make $1 million. Well, sure. What happens when you don't? What happens
Mm-hmm.
when you have to struggle? Do you give up? Do you push through? Do you get all depressed, angry? Whereas if we have the intention that I want to express, some value in the world through this business, then those goals are more easily able to shift. And when something can no longer be achieved because it just can't be achieved,
Mm-hmm.
then we don't have to get depressed about that. We don't have to get sidetracked even. We just carry on and go, okay, well, what are the other ways to express this express our value creation in the communities and in our world, I guess, from a broad perspective.
Yeah, and to harken back to something we've talked about on previous episodes, right? If you're new to business or if you're relatively new to it, one of the ways you do that goes back to our previous conversation about the backstop. So as an example, right? We're working together on Emissary Publishing, boutique publishing firm. It's not easy to find our target authors. We speak to way more people who we turn away than people who end up going, full on with us. And part of the reason for that is we're concerned about fulfilling a specific niche. But most authors don't share our concerns to the degree that we do. So to your point, it's very easy to go through cycles and, we can be very, very busy all of a sudden, and then we can be, just plugging away trying to get new prospects in the pipeline, new qualified prospects in the pipeline. We're working on things to overcome that. But I think one of the main things that I've taken away from it is that what's the alternative if we don't do this? There's going to be a continuously growing horde of dissatisfied authors who desperately want the kind of service that we provide, but no one's offering it to them. And why are we providing it? Because we look and we see we're dissatisfied with what happens to most published authors. It's not right. They have a message. They have a dream with the message they create, and they invest all this time and energy into creating it, and then it goes nowhere. And moreover, they're doing it in isolation, and they're not benefiting from the multiplying effect of several sets of experienced and knowledgeable eyes and minds to make that message coherent and compelling and impactful. And so a lot of people want to write books, very few do. And the few who do, mm, um, the majority of that few end up disappointed from the process. And so the backstop for me, certainly thinking about that, is that if you and I don't do what we've set our intention to do, who's going to do it? And I'm not saying we're the only people on the face of the planet who do it. I'm just saying that makes it one less among a very small group of people who can actually fulfill that need.
It also reminds me of the e-commerce company I founded a long time ago, 20 years ago, dear Lord, 20 years ago, 2002. Our goal, the intention, call it goal, call it intention. The intention was that we were going to enable consumers to buy their heating and air conditioning products directly. They would save direct from the distributor, let's say. They would save money, and they could do some or all of their installation themselves. That was the intention. How that expressed itself was an e-commerce store that people could go online and buy their furnaces, air conditioners, air purifiers, air cleaners, all the other stuff, component parts. Furnace igniter goes out, we'll ship you an igniter overnight. Along the lines, some of our goals were challenged. So one of our goals was we're going to ship from multiple distributors or distribution centers. An intermediate goal was we had distributors set up for drop shipping. And then another goal along the way was we're going to ship products ourselves, which necessitated creating a new company in a new state, shipping products from that warehouse that we were sourcing. So there's a lot of different goals that we didn't set out necessarily to do. They were under the, or built on top of, the bedrock intention of we're going to enable consumers to buy their heating and air conditioning products themselves, saving hundreds or thousands of dollars. Done. At one point in time, one of our primary goals was challenged. We couldn't ship a lot of our products through one of our distributors because the supply chain had a conniption fit that we were shipping direct. And to overcome that, we set a goal that in 2 weeks, I was going to build this software application that allowed us to deliver from dealers anywhere in the country. And that was a goal because if I didn't do that, we weren't going to be able to ship probably 60% of our products. And so for those 2 weeks, we took all the orders and we said, sorry, there's a delay in your order, while I built out the software application to go fulfill orders from local dealers anywhere in the country. Those goals shifted. I didn't start out this company, thinking that I was going to have to build out a software application in 2 weeks at some point in time because our distributors told us that they weren't going to ship our product. I didn't know that was going to be a problem, but the bedrock remained the same. You can buy your products direct, you save hundreds of thousands of dollars. On top of that, all those goals had to shift. And I was not going to get hung up on whether the goal was met or the goal was not met, because I knew that as long as we were taking one step closer each day, whatever came in front of us, suddenly a distributor moves a checker piece and it's like, you can't ship those products. And I'm like, shoot. Right. Well, now I've got a piece to play. Great. Then I'm going to ship from other people and we're going to say goodbye to you. And we did. We started shipping from other dealers, and then we set up, another checker piece was we're going to make new relationships with distributors. And so we did. We went up the food chain, got an even bigger distributor, one that was 4 times the size. And then another piece was, hey, thanks, original distributor, we're not going to buy products from you anymore because you keep hassling us. All of those were checker pieces. Playing chess in this would never have worked because all of these movements that we think are even for the good of the consumer, turns out that's not always what businesses are doing. They're not working towards necessarily the good of the end user. It's like sufficient good of the end user while protecting the supply chain. So it's impossible to know what the intentions are of other people until they tell you. And a lot of people don't even know. So you have to set your own intention, build that as a bedrock, and then set goals on top of that. But if the goals aren't met, the goals aren't met. But did you make progress in the direction? For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And did you operate maybe by principles that are even underneath, the bedrock, the principles, the magma of the earth that all the bedrock is created from? Those are the principles. So I think it's principles, it's intentions, it's goals on top of that. Goals could be swept away with a good tornado, but
Yeah.
you can rebuild on your intentions.
Yep. Yeah. I see this all the time with physical fitness, right? Because there's this image the culture has of the perfection of physical fitness. And then there's the reality that most of us can't get there. Either we don't have the time, or we don't have the genetics, or we don't have the steroids, or we don't have something. And so you have to come to a place, I certainly have, where you're very satisfied with a unique definition that is success to you. If you don't fit the mold, I think a lot of, too bad Naomi's not here to comment on this, but I think a lot of women get wrapped up with the whole, this is the definition of beauty. And then they go and try to force themselves to look like that, which takes away from the natural beauty they already wield and turns them into something that looks great on the outside, but creates a lot of inner emotional turmoil. I've met a few ladies like that who have really given themselves to that whole concept when it was never theirs to begin with, right? And so I just see some parallels there from what you're describing, because there are a lot of, if you try and play according to the defined constraints of a chessboard with the infinite variables of something like business, it's going to be tricky. Now, there are businesses, I would say at the same time, franchises come to mind, where it's very, very well organized and established procedurally, so that all you've got to do is plug it and play it. And I think there are people for whom those are an excellent fit, because there are some people who say, I want to be in business, but I don't really want to do all of the hard work of figuring out what my brand is and what my marketing strategy is. I just want to set up a business, own it, run it, develop it, build it. Yes, but the messaging and the brand identity, I want someone else to do that, to do it for me, and then I will just not depart from it. And I think it's not that it's a complete chess game, but it's more of a chess game than starting up a unique original brand.
I like how we talk about goals and intentions going hand in hand, because when I visualize it, I think of the intention as looking out to the horizon. Let's say, I think I may have mentioned this, but let's say you're in the woods and you're lost, right? And you're in the middle of nowhere. But you can see out in the horizon, and you see like a far off landmark. So if that's an intention, and you head in that direction, that's the direction that you're going to head to until whenever you get there or whatever you stop. And then goals being landmarks along the way. So let's say you're heading west, or what you think is west, then you can see like a riverbank, maybe down in that direction. So so if intention is heading west and you find that riverbank, you get to that goal. But that being said, you either are going to reach that goal or you're not. In some cases, you may not, and the goal changes. Maybe there's another landmark that seems more attainable, or maybe in a less maybe in a more favorable direction or something like that. Maybe kind of takes you off the beat path but takes you to a place that maybe you didn't expect that was much more better than where you were. When I think of setting intentions versus setting goals, the way I think of it now is you can leave yourself open to thinking outside the box and potentially doing things as you had described, Jason, that was much different than what you originally had thought what was going to happen, but you made it work. And for better or worse, you went down that path. So I see the point, intention. And then when playing checkers and chess and stuff like that, playing the move that's in front of you or the handful of moves that are available to you makes sense because you can't make moves happen per se. You can only control the moves that you got. You can only play the hand that you were dealt. So, I say it makes sense. And for me, I was going through a lot of, mental turmoil over the weekend about, different things that were happening in my life. And I think I ended up in this like thought bottleneck source. Like so many things were going on at once. I was just really finding myself in a vortex of stress. And in my conversation yesterday, I realized that, there's not a lot, not that I didn't know this, but I realized again that there's only so much one can do. There's only so much you can control, right? The only thing you can control is how you react and what your thoughts are. So this, when you have that intention and you realize you can only control yourself in any situation, it really helps to kind of like take the burden off you a little bit and just kind of let things kind of come to pass when you can't control them and then move forward. A lot of what was shared with me and what I was talking about was letting things pass, just letting things go. Because at the end of the day, like you're always going to be yourself and whatever happens to you is going to pass anyway, regardless. Everything changes. The only thing constant in this world, in this universe is change. And so you just got to like kind of work with what you got, play the hand that you were dealt, play to the best of your ability, be decisive and, be decisive. I want to say I'm somewhat proud of what you do. If that's your intention, and just kind of go with whatever works at the time and like kind of go with the flow. And that's something that I've often lived my life by. I think recently for me personally, like I've put myself in a position in which I really don't feel is one that I want to be in, but I do it because I see my intention. I see why I'm doing it, why I'm here, why I put myself in the position, things like that, because there's a goal that I'm trying to there's a goal, there's a direction that I'm going and goals that I'm trying to reach. And the only way to do that at this point in time is to kind of go with the flow, how things are going and play the cards that I have, the hand that I'm dealt, and to be okay with that, because at the end of the day, I know the direction. I know my values. I know my mission. I know what's important to me. So yeah, just kind of have to be good with it. It's tough. It ain't easy. Let me be honest. Like I say it like it's something I just turned on yesterday. Like, but it's like, it's kind of like, warming up an engine in a sense, those old up to 1980s engines where you had to warm up for like a good 10 minutes just to get the air on. I feel like I'm starting to get the gears moving and things like that and really changing my mindset, which is really important. Because at the end of the day, it's all about your intention and your mindset. And that's the only thing that can guide you.
When we were children in school, we would come to a math class at some point in time and they'd be like, hey, here's sine, cosine, tangent. Here's some other squiggly do. I don't think any of us looked internally or were like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I didn't know the sine, cosine, tangent until now. And I feel so stupid that this guy's telling me I should have known these things, because we were just coming into that space where we could where we could learn it, where we could apply it. We had prerequisites up to that point. We were never dumb. I don't think we looked at ourselves as dumb because we should have known this before now. Why do we not treat ourselves in much the same way as we go through our lives? At what point in time did we determine as adults that we should have known everything by now? Right? I I look back as a young guy, as a sales executive in a technology marketing company. And I recall coming home from day's work, and I would go through, I would take, like, reach into my pants pocket, and I would pull out all these Post-it notes, and they were folded over. I don't listen to the Post-it note, but they were folded over because it has a sticky side, right? They would fold over so they wouldn't get lint from my pocket, right? And on the note was like, "Call Larry about the such and such." That was the to-do item sticking in my pocket. And I get another Post-it note at some point in time, "Make the such and such," oh, fold it over, stick it in my pocket. The end of the day, I'd be going through those going like, "Oh, shoot, forgot to do that. Oh, shoot, forgot to do that. Oh, did this pocket lint and all sorts of stuff." Never occurred to me that I should probably just carry around a little notebook and just be like, "Here's everything that needs to go on." And then furthermore, maybe categorize it by what everything needed to go on. Never, I don't know why I didn't think maybe I should just have like a notepad and just carry it around. Why? I don't understand. I'm not even sure to this day why reasonably smart Jason, I think I'm not a dumb person. Why I thought it was a great idea to use Post-it notes. So I started keeping lists. Revolutionized my life, right? Now I keep lists all over the place for all sorts of things. Well, years later, I hired a manager at a company I owned, and I would go walk in there and be like, "Hey, where's what needs to get done here? Oh, this needs to get done. This needs to get done. This needs to get done. All right, cool." And then it wouldn't get done. I'd be like, "All right, where's the list of things that need to get done?" And he'd be like, "Well, it's like it's in my head, and I'm looking around for the right app to record the to do items." And I was like, "I don't think you need an app. I think you just need a list." And I took a gigantic piece of paper and stuck it on the wall, and I was like, "Let's brain dump all of the things that are sitting in your head that are really the list of items that need to get done." And we got done with making that list, and he was like, "Wow, that was really helpful. That's that's really, really good." And I'm like, and I thought, "How dumb can you be that you think you couldn't make a list?" And I was like, "How dumb, like,
You could
why
be
was
as
this
dumb as I was.
revolutionary to me at one point in time?" And right? And 30 years later, you look at this sort of thing, you're like, well, of course you'd make a list. At any point in time, we come to this list making point where it's just like, oh, this is revolutionary. And the people who've gone on before, who've been on that journey, go, well, duh. How
Mhm.
can we? So I think at when we go through this entrepreneurial journey, when we're discovering how do we express ourselves, in the world, do we launch a business, do we not launch a business, what is that business, what do we make, all this other stuff, all these experimentations. At any given time, we are that kid who's just newly learning something, and he's not dumb because he didn't know it before. We didn't need it before, and now we need
Yeah.
it, and now we need to learn it. Or as young sales executive, you should just make a list. Like, oh my god. Right? I At any point in time, no matter how old we are, we reach that point of new learning. We're not dumb because we didn't know it before. And I think that giving ourselves that grace to 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 have learned something new,
Mm.
expressed ourselves afresh in the world, I think is super important. Um, that's what comes to my mind when we kind of get in this mode as people of kind of kicking ourselves for like, oh my God, cannot believe I did that. It's like, all right,
Mm.
well, this is the first day you've ever been this old.
Yeah. I
You know?
learned a habit from Morgan Snyder, who's one of the guys from Wild at Heart with John Eldridge. And he said he got used to telling his kids, please bear with me. I've never parented a 15-year-old before. I've never parented a 17-year-old before. It's my first time, right? And it's your first time being a 17-year-old. And it's a similar thing. Like if I look, Jason, at the kind of sales conversations I have now versus the ones I was having a year ago, I could easily say, what an idiot I was. I was benighted. I was certainly ignorant, but I didn't wake up thinking, how can I blow these sales calls today? I didn't have anybody showing me another way to do it. So I was just, winging it as best as I could. And nowadays I have very different conversations, much more quality. And all along, I've been in this game long enough to know you can't despise the day of small beginnings, but you certainly should grow from it. You certainly should understand, now I see what I've been doing wrong. Okay. I wasn't doing it wrong because I wanted to sabotage myself. I was doing wrong because, I wasn't ready. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So to put this back on the whole chess versus checkers thing, it brought me back to a video I watched from Dan Locke, the guy who does the king of high ticket sales thing. But I found it was true. I don't imagine he came up with this. I think he was just, piggybacking off of something that, experienced entrepreneurs know. So when you are starting out in your business journey, he drew this pyramid, and at the bottom of the widest part of the pyramid, he said that when you're starting out, you can say yes to a lot of different things. Why? Because you don't know which one's going to work. And you don't know which ones aren't going to work. The only way to find out is to go through them. But then he said, then you get up to this middle stage of the period, and now you've figured out some things that work. And now you get into the process of saying, I actually have to get rid of some things because I've got things that are working, and then I've got stuff over here that's just dragging a weight wherever I'm going. So you go from saying yes to 90% to saying yes to more like 30%. And then he drew up at the top of the pyramid. Now this is where everyone wants to be, on top of the hill, right? And this is where you say yes to 97% of what comes across your desk, right? This is where you play chess, because at that point, you know what works, and you don't have to try new stuff. You just have to maintain or improve what you're doing. I shouldn't say you don't have to try new things, but what I mean is you're very familiar with what is aligned with your vision, values, and mission, with what works for your company, what works with your brand. And so you just have to execute on that, and you have to streamline it and systematize it and clean it as polish it as much as you can so that it works like a charm. And I think that is where chess skills are much more powerful, because, right, chess players are making calculations and thinking 10 steps ahead and saying, if I do this, what will that open up on the board? How will I make myself vulnerable? And at the same time, how do I lure my opponent into the trap so that I, gain more market share? I think what happens is that a lot of smart people who want to become entrepreneurs think I have to play chess. And so when I was, prior to getting on the workshop this morning, when I was going through thinking about a podcast that you and I were talking about yesterday, the first thing that automatically comes to me is, okay, where do I host it? Which is maybe not the best question I should be asking. And the reason I know that is that's how I operated on my first podcast. And not that that's not important, but that's not really the most important thing to think about right now for me. The most important thing to think about for me right now is, what would this podcast do? Who would it serve? And therefore, what should I be talking about? Who should I be having as a guest? Who should we be having as a guest? And what are we going to fill up this time with? And what are we going to be willing to try out to go up that pyramid until it becomes, a, a revenue producing, a source, consistently producing a source of revenue. So we all have to go up that pyramid, and you start out by being willing to try different things, and then you narrow it from there.
Well, that gets to Brian's point of intentions and Simon Sinek's point of start with why. And all the work that we do with growing businesses or starting businesses or naming a book, the big question is, why do I care? And until we know why we care, we're going to express ourselves in a disabled sort of fashion.
Yeah.
Something's missing, and everybody knows it, and we kind of know it too. We walk with a limp. I'm not sure why. And it's because we don't know why we're really wanting to do this thing. And so we tend to get off track a little bit with, to your point, Ryan, goals, setting goals that don't make sense. And when we don't meet them, it's like, the world's coming down. Because we don't really know, we don't really understand our intentions or our why. And then in addition, we have to have the opportunity to understand why our consumer or customer, client, whatever you want to call them, cares. Why should they care about it? Here's why I want to do it. Why do they care? And being able to answer that question, which gets back to benefits, right? So people talk about communicate the benefits of your product or service. That's why the customer should care. Why we're doing it might be different. And there's got to be that transmission, and that transmission of, I'm doing this thing. Here's why I'm doing it. Here's why you're doing it. And then we meet in the middle. That is that's a process of communication. And people sign up. People get behind great causes for the intention of the cause. They agree with the why. It's all a matter of belief. Find the people who believe the things you believe, and bond them together. Which, for your skincare line, that's, here's what I believe, which is, what we've talked about doing social media and stuff. It's like, here's why I'm doing this. And then if you believe that that's important too, then here's a solution for us all. That's essentially, that's the essence of launching a sustainable brand. I believe this. Do you believe it? We meet in the middle, and we create products and services and create value, essentially, which is expressed through products and services, which you purchase. But it's that sort of principle, I think, is applicable across all of humanity. And whenever you want to get somebody together and do something great in the world, figure out what you believe. And that gets back to, I think, the point, intentions, and then build your intermediate goals. But your goals might be swept away with one change of the wind. I also think one thought comes to my mind. I've been watching this volcano in Iceland that might be coming out. And in some of the videos that you're seeing, this live view of Iceland, there's some lighthouses. And it's been a long time since I thought about a lighthouse. But hey, if you're in an island in the middle of nowhere and you come up, you're in a boat, and it's foggy. The wind is howling. There are big waves. It sure is helpful to have a lighthouse to point you to land, to either make sure you go to that land or make sure you don't hit that land. But we need to have a direction. That direction points to us, points out where we should go, I think, in the middle of the storms. And that's what intentions are. And I think even deeper than that, what principles are. When our goals get all jostled up and life gets crazy and business feels like it's falling apart, look for the lighthouse. That's where I want to head. And then take a deep breath and figure out who else is on that boat with you, and go, hey, we're trying to go here. How do we get there? And be willing to sacrifice all of your goals to rework them to move in that direction. And sometimes that means wait it out. don't go now. The seas are too high. You're going to capsize. Sometimes it means tack and move. It looks like you're not headed in the right direction, but you're actually tacking with the wind to get to where you need to go. Sometimes you need to repoint your ship into the waves until the waves subside, and then you get back on track. But all of that movement, we need to sacrifice all of that, or sometimes return back to our intentions, which I think in our conversation, Ryan, we talked about what are the things I really care about? Don't sacrifice those. Those are my lighthouse. If I don't head in that direction, I'm going to be sorely disappointed. And then what am I willing or unwilling to do to move myself in that direction, including creating or sacrificing business goals in the meantime?
Yep. Agreed.
What that makes me think of is a couple of years ago, I heard somebody talking about the scene in the Gospels where Jesus leads the disciples out onto the sea during a storm. And, the wind picks up and the waves are crashing and the disciples all panic and they wake him up. And then, they're like, don't you care that we're all going to die and drown? And then he gets up and he says to the wind, be quiet. And it dies down. And the interesting point that I had been missing about that story for a long time was that this sea, it was pretty big, but it was small enough that you could have walked around it. Would have taken you a little bit longer than going by boat, but the safe way is on land, right? Walk around it, then you can't be attacked by the waves, right? You can feel the wind, but you're still on solid ground. And if you fall down, you'll get back up again. And they could have walked around, but if they had walked around, what would they have missed? They would have missed watching a single man stand up and address the weather and tell it to shut up, and then watching it do exactly as he told them to, which is not something that happens every day. And moreover, if you actually stood there and watched that happen, you would say, this is not just any man. And you would be convinced of things that you couldn't be convinced of if you walked around the safe side. So what that reminds me of is that we need to, as much as we might want to get to a specified destination of an intention we set, we have to be prepared that we're operating in a world where, at least as far as we're concerned, there's someone else very important involved in saying yay or nay. And if he determines that, yes, you can get there, but here's the route you're going to take, and it's not a straight line. I'm deliberately sending you off course because there's stuff you're going to need when you get there that you're not going to get if I just let you go straight A to B.
Yeah.
And that is when we talk about the maturity journey of the entrepreneur, that's, as I look back at every difficult, painful lesson I've learned pursuing business, has all brought me to exactly where I am now. And now I can't forget that. I can't unlive it. I can't unremember it, but I can use it when I get confronted with new stuff that comes along and says, hey, look at me, do this. And I'm like, yeah, no, I know this trick, right? It's a wonderful asset tool to have in your arsenal as an entrepreneur. You can't buy it at a store and you can't learn it in an online course. You have to live it. And you have to be, I would say to every entrepreneur, be prepared to go down side alleys like that where it gets kind of harrowing. But in the end, you come out the other side and you're like, I'm not going to fall for that again.
Yeah. I agree. I think everything I think it goes to the whole adage, everything happens for you, not to you. If you look at life in that way, then it's really easy to see the opportunity in things or the lessons in things. So that's how I try to kind of navigate through life.
which makes me also think of the necessity of having people around you who can see the lessons and the opportunities when we cannot see it ourselves because we're caught up in the middle of it. You know, we are sometimes in the middle of the storm. Sometimes we're calling somebody out of the storm. And sometimes we're saying, hey, this isn't that big of a deal. This isn't really a storm. You don't know storms. Like, relax for a moment. It's going to get worse. And, but when somebody's gone through it, I think that's the really critical thing. When somebody's gone through it, you're more able to listen to them. And then when you go through it, you're more able to help somebody through it. That I think is I think if we can find joy and in the process of learning all of those things, in the process of experiencing those things, I think that's super important. Which, to your point, everything happens for you, not to you. That's just a matter of perspective, and that perspective makes all the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, anything else we're thinking about on this topic? Coming up at the end of our workshop call this week.
No, I think this was a good topic. I think this was insightful.
One little thing that this is real time for me is be attentive to when these difficulties come your way. Be attentive to opportunities you may be missing. I just had this happen this morning. And I'll just to make it real, my oldest son asked me, "Are you sad or something? Are you mad?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, it's something in your face." And I said, "You're not the first person to tell me that." And I've been hearing that for most of my life for some reason or another. I realized later as I was, going through my morning prayers and all that, I realized I missed an opportunity to engage in some transparency that probably would have helped. Whether it would have helped me directly, I don't know, but it was an opportunity to let your guard down. So, Jason, what you're talking about there about who goes with you on the journey. You may be the type who, still sweeps certain things under the rug like it didn't matter. Well, it does matter. So I said in my prayers, I don't think I did anything wrong, but I missed an opportunity, which I'm now going to follow up and say, let me tell you why I think I am this way, or some of the reasons that might be contributing to this, and just let him feel the weight of what that is. Because very often, right, we'll find the greatest restoration and healing and moving forward, and good perspective on our past experiences by being open about them and not minimizing or brushing them away or pretending like it didn't happen or like it didn't matter, because it did.
Valid.
That
So
makes
valid.
sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. Jason and I had a conversation about that, like the feelings you feel, opportunities, things like that. They are real things. So it's okay to feel that way and react to them, but downplaying them can really be a disservice sometimes.
Which might be a guy thing. I think we tend to just downplay I don't know.
I think it's societal.
Yeah, we've all trained each other that we don't care. Like, just suck it up, dude. Move on. Women tend to gather around the campfire of feelings. All right. Well, that's a different topic.
Yep.
Well, gentlemen, it's been great having you here. This is the end of our time on the workshop in the Thinker Growth community, where we're building business accelerator for faith-based entrepreneurs to change the world through their products, services, and messages. These are our faculty members, Paul Edwards, Ryan Gard, and we've also got TC, who could not join us today, and Naomi, who's taking the kids on some trip. So if you, I'm going to do this. I've got a handful of book recommendations I'm going to drop into the community regarding habits and goals and a little bit of psychology stuff behind it, if anybody wants to read those. So I'll be dropping those in here in just a couple minutes. So, thanks everybody for joining us. Catch us next time every Tuesday at workshop, 10 a.m. Central. And gentlemen, good to see y'all. Have a great day.
Until next time.